Willie, good evening. We are back in the 2800 universe and we are talking WandaVision, episode 3. I don't think these have titles like Mando does, and if they
So,
do, I've missed them.
so it's interesting. I think they're doing the same thing that Mando did, where they're not revealing the titles for a few days. Um,
Okay.
and I'm not gonna remember. I think the title for this one was like "And Now in Color," because
Oh, yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right.
since I didn't watch it until Monday or Tuesday, it had the title up already. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. I totally missed that because I've been watching them like
It's
that
super.
night or the morning. Yeah.
It's the same. I think they're doing the same thing with Mando, where they're saving that
Yeah,
title for a few days. Yeah.
got it. Okay, makes sense. Well, I missed it, and now in color, that definitely sounds right. But we were in the 70s. So
Still
how did you,
decades.
yeah. How did you find episode 3 of WandaVision?
I liked this one. This is definitely the first episode I think the show really worked for me. Um, and I think I do want to mention, we kind of talked about this last week, but as far as I know, critics were given the first three episodes, which is usually that means, hey, we think something cool is going to happen in episode three, or at least enough to give critics an idea of what the show's going for. So I think this was where things started to fall together. I'm still on shaky ground with the show as a whole. We're almost halfway through at this point.
Yeah.
Um, and so, unlike something with Mando where we had the longer episodes, a short season sitcom is going to be a lot trickier to look at, how good it does. If it takes this long to warm up and then what it leads to. But I'm definitely in.
Interesting. See, we've definitely flipped because I was in on the first two and you were more out, and now you're in on three. And I gotta tell you, I'm out on episode 3, and here's why. I feel like there was a ton of repetition from things that we saw in the first two episodes.
Mm,
Let me just give you a couple quick ones. Number one, the commercial that we had was another Hydra commercial.
yeah.
Um, so now in the first episode there was a Stark commercial, in the second episode there was a Hydra commercial. Now we have another Hydra commercial, and unless my first glance comic corner reading was incorrect, it wasn't anything deeper than the fact that it was a Hydra logo. We also have a moment late in the episode where a character mentions something like it's difficult to. He says that the doctor says it's difficult to escape.
Yeah.
So we'll get into all this in a little bit more detail, but there are a couple moments of repetition where I'm like, okay, well, you're kind of retreading the same ground. We're hitting the same notes, and I'm not sure that we're making, the sword pendant is back, and it was made a bigger deal of. But again, I don't think we're not swinging for anything new. Now, the end stinger of the episode, we can get into, but other than that, I thought that it was a lot of repeated things, and I'm again still waiting to see more of the tapestry. But like you said, we're almost halfway through, and the ball hasn't really been advanced forward for me enough by episode 3. I really expected a big swing when we did Mando. The first two episodes, slower starts, but the third episode was a huge Bo-Katan, all that stuff, crazy swing. I was expecting the same here, and I didn't get it. So I was a little disappointed, but let's talk about stuff we did like. What was your favorite part of this episode?
Oh my God, the whole scene with the stork.
Okay.
That
Interesting.
that was well because that was the scene where for me what they were trying to do with the show worked, which is this weird mystical element of Wanda's,
Mm-hmm.
but played up in like a super corny sitcom way. And like just having the like stork bounce around in the back and like get so close and like ridiculously close, like close to the point where there's no way that she didn't know the stork was there, but she doesn't see the stork. And,
Right.
and then it's like, okay. And in actually it complicates things even further when you see what happens to her later in the episode. She may have known the stork was there and was just avoiding it to play along with Wanda.
Yeah.
Which is also interesting. But I think like it was just that was the scene where it was just like, and a scene like that could easily not work, but it was just like weird and off kilter enough, well fitting in that sitcom mold. When I was like, okay, this is what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
And I liked it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I wasn't in on the stork. I wasn't out on it completely, but I did have it later for an in and out. So I'm glad that we touched on it. I like I think I agree with you. I liked the how it was positioned, and then executionally. I think you're right. It works better once the ending is in play. You kind of realize what the character in the show is Geraldine, but we know that the character really is Monica Rambeau. We talked about this last week. She's going by Geraldine to Wanda inside the world of the TV show. But I would say this is a toss up for me. I moved my favorite to my surprise moment. So I think my favorite moment would then have to be Wanda singing the Sokovian lullaby to the twins. I thought it was just a nice moment, and you can kind of feel the pain that Wanda is feeling, and that scene is really well played between Monica Rambeau and Wanda because again, it's unclear what the role of Monica is in this scene, and I guess we can just get into this now. What the role of anyone in this is. So I'm not sure what your take on this was, but I initially, when we talked about the show, I had thought that Wanda was imagining everyone, like that she was under some kind of like she was locked in a room somewhere and she was just imagining this all in her head. The end stinger reveals that in fact there is a literal place where they are, which is not the sword base in space. And there's a containment field surrounding the area where actual human beings have entered and exited. So Wanda throws Monica Rambeau out of the field, as then a bunch of what I'm guessing are sword agents come and grab her. So is this a Truman Show scenario? Like, is that what we're getting now? Because now we have to think about, well, who's real and who is imagined? So I don't know. What was your initial read after the ending?
Yeah, so mine wasn't Truman Show. Where I jumped to was The Village.
Okay.
Was kind of that similar thing where
Yes.
where she's created this. I mean, I think she's in her own little world, but she has the power to actually create her own little world. And I think everyone in it's fake. The question in my head is what is about Vision.
Yeah. So Vision's the big.
Because all the other characters, I mean, we see it, you know, they're with the one scene with Vision, they're like whispering and talking and all that. And they seem to all be in on it.
Yeah.
But when I don't remember exactly what point it was, Vision said something that she didn't like, and then she rewound.
He says Wanda something is wrong.
Yes.
And then she blinks him back in a less obvious fashion than the previous episodes, but just enough where you obviously notice it.
So my question there is she in complete control of Vision, which would mean Vision is just part of her imagination?
Yeah.
And so, but then is Vision part of the imagination that's part of her brain starting to realize something's wrong? Or is Vision actually there? It's, I don't know. I mean, I don't.
That's an incredibly interesting point, and I hadn't thought about that. That Vision is, if I'm reading you right, that Vision is almost like the part of her brain that realizes what she's doing is wrong and
Yeah.
trying to convince her that it's bad.
Yeah.
Um, so I really like the village analogy because I think that's more apt than the Truman Show. My Truman Show thing, though, is I actually do think the people in it are SWORD agents,
Yeah.
just like Geraldine was.
Yeah.
Because
I think that's true.
and see, it's so tough with Vision because Vision interacts with people outside of Wanda. Like he has interactions. So there's that scene where the neighbor. I have no idea what the significance of this. The neighbor is
Chainsaw Man.
yeah, chainsawed like a brick wall. And then he's talking to Agnes, and Agnes is trying to talk to Vision about something. Um, and what she says is she's talking about Geraldine. She gives Geraldine up, and says she doesn't have a home. And like that perception, and actually, maybe this plays into your theory. When she says that to Vision, that then triggers in Wanda like that something's off. Obviously, Geraldine Monica overplays her hand when she mentions Ultron. But anyways, Agnes says she came here because we're all, and then it stops. She came here because we're all, and I don't know what we don't have enough information to finish that sentence, but I think that's the Truman Show. Whether they're all trying to get Wanda out, whether they're all trying to stop Wanda. Interesting things at play. But okay, that was my Truman Show thing. I'm glad we got off on that topic, but I really like your analysis of both the village and that Vision is the part of Wanda's brain and trying to solve it.
Yeah, and it's hard too because I mean, and that even fits in with what you said with all of them being SHIELD agents. Is maybe the SHIELD agents realize to get to Wanda, they really have to go through Vision because Vision's really just a representation of Wanda's more susceptible psyche. I don't.
That might be right though. That makes sense.
Yeah. I do. I like this idea that Wanda is in a location, either real or imagined, and she is in a fragile state, and everyone is coming into this world that she's created, I think to try to help her, but is also extremely scared of upsetting her.
Right. Clearly.
And I think that's what we try to get is with mentioning Ultron. I think she had a moment where she was like, okay, I've bonded with Wanda. Like, I can push things a little bit to help her. And then clearly she pushes them too far, and then Wanda kicks her out.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting, it's almost like a doctor, like patient type relationship.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. One other thing I want to note about the containment field, and we've talked about this multiple times, but that WandaVision is part of what I'm calling the multiverse trilogy that they're building. WandaVision, Doctor Strange, the Multiverse of Madness, and then Spider-Man 3. Now, in Spider-Man 2, we see Mysterio's augmented reality tech, which took an abandoned bar and through projection and drones turned it into a functioning bar. And he did this, that's how he created the monsters. When Monica is thrown through the field, it's a blue haze, kind of like a blue containment field that she goes through, which is the color that Mysterio's projection uses as well. And there's a sign that says Westview in the real world that Monica gets thrown out of.
Yep.
And it kind of looks run down. And I'm almost like, is this Mysterio tech that they're using to create this world for Wanda that she can then manipulate things within? Like, is there some level of Mysterio tech going on? So I thought that was interesting because I was tracking any connections to Spider-Man or Doctor Strange, and I thought the blue haze of the containment field and the fact that there's a literal Westview, and it immediately made me think of, oh, this is like the bar that Mysterio augments to look different. So I don't know if that's going to pay off at all. It was just something I tracked. But
Interesting. Okay.
What was the thing that surprised you the most about this episode?
Surprised me the most. Not the twins. We knew twins were coming.
Yes. Yeah.
You know what? This is kind of a out of left field, but the thing that surprised me the most actually was there were a couple mentions of people like waving off Vision's powers.
Mm-hmm.
Like the doctor was like, "Oh, like if we just walk back,
yes,
instead of fly or stuff like that." And so it's and again, there's so many layers here, but if we go with the idea that the doctor, at least his shield, is he slipping up and what he's saying, or is he noticing what's Vision's powers and not supposed to mention them, or is he trying to casually mention that he's in on it, this all being fake?
I actually think if we're following your track, if they are trying to appeal to Vision, if they're trying to crack Vision first, the line the doctor says, Vision brings him back, I think, and he says, sorry about disrupting your plans, and the doctor says, well, that, of course, about small towns, it's so very hard to escape. And he's just like very pointed, very direct to Vision, though. So I wonder if what you've called out is exactly right, and that the appeal. So like Agnes tries to get to Vision. Vision has twice now noticed something is incorrect, and Wanda has blinked him back, and now the doctor is like, something's up. It's like they're constantly trying to get to Wanda through Vision. So interesting. My biggest surprise was Ultron being name dropped so early. I expected Ultron to play into this at some point, because it's difficult to have a sole Vision and Vision story without mentioning Ultron, because of their relationship. But I didn't expect it so early and so casually. But I thought it was nice. I almost like putting on my speculation hat. Like, could we see like a human James Spader playing a human Ultron at some point in this show? Like, especially in the 80s episode, since Spader was an 80s superstar.
Well, I mean, there was, I didn't read the whole article. I just saw it going around on Facebook that Vision said he acted with someone from the MCU that he really wanted to act with, that he hadn't got to act before, and that it was like some secret star. So
interesting. My money would be on the 80s episode, which is this week's episode, being a human Spader that like comes into town. And I would love that, because Spader is so good, and I think he's so good at Ultron. I think that's a very underrated movie and performance. But that would be my like pie in the sky best thing to ever happen to this show, and then I'd be 100% in. But what didn't work about this episode for you?
Vision's fucking hair. Oh my god, it drove me absolutely insane. But okay, so that was the first thing I wrote down in my notes. However, the second thing that I noticed, and I'm curious to see if you picked up on this or not, is the delivery that Wanda's using for her lines. And I have seen some comments on like how her, sometimes she uses the accent and sometimes she doesn't.
Yeah.
I don't notice that stuff enough to pay attention.
Yeah.
But I'd say the first half of the episode, up until when she actually goes into labor, I think it's almost like she's playing Wanda pretending to be on a sitcom.
Yes.
Like, there's this over the top like lilt to her voice. Like she's talking like she is not like she did in the films, but like like she's pretending to be a housewife,
Yes.
pretending to be on a sitcom. And then that slowly goes away. And I'm not sure what's going on there.
I think that's right. That's my read on it too. Is that she is somehow aware and she is pretending like
Okay.
she's making jokes to camera.
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
is like aware of the whole pregnancy, putting things in front of her stomach to hide it, which is obviously an old TV trope, which is funny. It's a nice gag, but I think that's it. Is she is aware, but at the end of the episode, when she starts singing in Sokovian, when she mentions her brother, that's real Wanda.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
We mentioned this already, but my didn't love is the repetition. Like we talked about, like the characters calling out that there's something was wrong. Wanda blinking Vision back. Like it's all variations on what we've already seen before. So I wanted one piece of new information, and although Ultron was new, it wasn't something that it was like new to this show that I felt it needed. So
what about just finding out it's not in space and that it's in Westfield somewhere?
yeah, I was okay with it, but it's still sword related, and it didn't like I was like, okay, so they're not on the space station. Um, or maybe they are. Maybe they're in a giant hangar like at the holodeck in Star Trek, and they are using Mysterio tech. So like there really is, I don't know, but there was just nothing in it like narratively for the episode to differentiate it enough. And that's my thing. Is like I'm trying to take, like we can speculate, but I'm trying to take the episode for the most part at face value. And the episode was largely about Wanda's pregnant and gonna have kids through the end of the episode, and that's pretty much it. And Vision is realizing again for the third episode in a row something's wrong. So
Yeah, I mean, I think so. It's interesting. I think you're right. I think you could remove episode. This could have been episode 2.
yes,
and I don't think you really change anything.
No.
The one thing, the question that I keep wrestling with, which I think is going to be the key question for this show and potentially the MCU going forward, it's a tricky one. Is this show enjoyable without its connections to the larger MCU?
Yeah.
And already, so much of what I enjoy about this show only makes sense in context of the larger MCU.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we're going to be able to remove them, but I think that's what you need to look at is WandaVision as a show enjoyable even if it doesn't have larger ramifications?
Right. And to me the answer right now is no. It's not. If I pick this up and this is my first Marvel Cinematic Universe piece of entertainment, I would have absolutely no idea what's going on. I have no idea who Wanda or Vision are. They've done no setup. They've completely relied on the fact that you've watched all previous movies and have a somewhat working knowledge of the comics universe if you're really trying to pick up on stuff. So to me, the answer is no so far.
I think that's definitely fair. I mean, I think my answer was definitely no with the first 2 episodes. I think, and again, I think the tricky thing with this series too is I think it's going to be one of those shows. I mean, it's How I Met Your Mother. It's all going to come down to how it ends.
Yep, 100%.
And shows like that are tricky to judge week by week, but it's also, do you really enjoy it week by week if it only matters what the ending is? Like it's tough.
It's very tough. I feel like for the first 3 episodes, I was constantly waiting for things like the Ultron name drop. Like I feel like I'm not on the train of the show. Like the show doesn't have me. I'm waiting for like the sword logo to show up. I'm waiting for Nick Fury or Captain America. Like I'm waiting for those moments because I'm not engaged enough by the show. Whereas something like Mando, like we talk about the Luke Skywalker thing, that got me so much because I was already in on the episode and the story the episode was telling. And then when Luke Skywalker showed up, I'm like, oh my God, amazing. Where this is reversed.
I think that's a really, really good point. And it's interesting to me because I think that, I don't know. I almost don't know if they care if you're in on the show or not.
They might not. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's not, and especially like this. And I mean, it is tricky with 20-minute episodes as opposed to the longer runtimes of Mando. But with something like this, it's short. It's a short season. Do they really care if they establish WandaVision as its own show, or does it exist just as a pilot for the bigger universe?
Yeah.
And that's where I think we get huge differences between this and Mando, where I think that Mando in its first season did a very, very good job of establishing itself outside of everything else. And it wasn't until season 2 that it really started to make those connections. Right. And even without those connections, I think you still enjoy the Ahsoka episode. I think you still enjoy Bo-Katan. Yes. I think you still enjoy Luke. And but it's interesting for here, the whole point of the whole point of what you're waiting for is you're waiting for those larger connections at the expense of the individual episode's plot, which so far hasn't really been anything.
No, again, 3 very small stakes stories, and again, television stories, impressing the boss for dinner, a magic show, a character's having a baby, but it's like the narrative of the show is so far too muddled in the mystery.
Well, there isn't. I'd take it one step further. I'd almost say it doesn't really have a narrative.
It's just going to.
It feels like it's just doing things to set up mysteries almost.
That would infuriate me, but we could be right. I thought that episode 3 was going to be the one to make the call about what the show is going to be, and it didn't get it for me. So I'm now going to stretch that to episode 4. But if episode 4 is another variation on this theme, then the show doesn't have it to me. Like, you can't go half a season and not do anything that. Yeah.
One thing it could do, especially since they're playing with the time and stuff like that, is, do you think it's possible that some of the later episodes actually take place in the future?
Yes, I do think it's possible. Okay. I think all bets on time travel on various realities are up for grabs. My one thing that I guess I would say we can just kind of, because we talked about stuff that we liked and tracked, is that I wonder if the facade of the actual show is going to melt away, and that the show will 100% be like Vision kind of against Wanda. Like, Vision is trying to figure it out and escape.
Mm-hmm.
And escape Wanda, so that Wanda actually becomes the villain of the show and Vision the hero.
I like that. I like that a lot. So one of my other favorite moments of this episode was definitely the end, where she's talking to Vision, and I think this is what you're talking about, where this is real Wanda, and she's just like, oh, she had to go home. Yeah. Creepy and maniacally.
Right.
And I mean, I think there's definitely, I'm not going to go too far out with this comparison, considering I'm not a comics person. Uh-huh. But I think there's definitely comparisons that can be drawn here between Wanda and Dark Phoenix.
Yes.
In terms of Breaking Bad. And if she, like, I would love to see her become the villain of this show. Like, and even I think that is what sold me on this episode, maybe more than anything else, was just that little bit of darkness we got out of her at the end. And I was like, that's what I'm here for. Like, something is not going right, and she's not happy about it.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be dark. So
I'd be here for that. I'd be here for that. If they went that route. But again, I think the next episode is really going to be the key.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
All right, I'm going to give you some in and outs. We talked about most of this already, but just let me know your overall thoughts. So, number one, the 70s setting.
You know what? I'm going to say I'm out just because it's responsible for his hair.
Yeah, I was also out. I didn't think they really did enough with it, like they did in previous episodes.
Yeah. I think. I think my guess is the original pitch for this season was, what if we did each episode as a decade?
Yeah.
And then,
it doesn't really serve a narrative purpose more than a thematic purpose.
Yeah.
The Hydra commercial.
I still liked it. I'm in on it. I think, I don't know why, and I know it's really dumb and goofy, but fake commercials on TV just get me every time.
I like the device. I was really disappointed that it wasn't like PIM tech or like there's a thousand things it could have been, but it was just another Hydra thing again. I'm like, yes, we get it. We know.
That's fair. Like, there was no, and I think that fits into your larger thing with there was nothing new. They could have picked anything else to tie it into, to tie it into the larger universe. And just doing Hydra again is the weak easiest choice.
Yeah. Wanda blinking Vision back. And I saw on Twitter some people, I don't know if they were being annoying or not, but on Twitter some people were saying that they actually thought that their stream messed up in the blink back.
No, so that I was watching with my roommate, and we thought that same thing for a second too. Yeah.
The first time I saw it, I will say I thought that also. I was like, oh shit, my internet. And I was like, no, wait, damn it, she did that. So I was in on that.
Yeah, I'm in on that too. Like, that to me is one of the more interesting things, because it shows that she has some level of control over Vision, which she may not have over the other characters.
Right. Wanda mentioning her brother.
I'm in on it.
Yeah, I'm in. It kind of was. There was no way they were gonna avoid it.
No, and it was a grind, and I think that was the moment that led to her getting kicked out.
Yeah.
Because when Wanda mentioned her brother, she thought, okay, Wanda's bonding with me now. I can take things a step further, and then it blew up.
Right.
So.
Yeah. My next one is Ultron killed him? ? So Monica mentioning Ultron.
Yeah, I'm in.
Yeah, I liked it. Again, surprised that it was so early and kind of so flippant, but I think it plays. The stork.
Oh, I'm so in on I'm so in on the stork.
I did like the stork. I thought it was well played. I thought it was going to be annoying at first, but then I think they did a nice job.
Yeah.
The twins and the pregnancy, the rapid pregnancy.
I'm gonna say I'm out on this.
Okay.
For two reasons. I wasn't buying her labor pains, not realistic, but it's also hard because I feel like she was playing someone faking labor,
Yes, exactly.
But the other reason, and so this was actually in my notes, and I know it's the MCU and I know it's Disney, but at no point did Vision and Wanda go, didn't something physical have to happen for a baby to be here? Like, he's a robot. Like, they...
So in Infinity War, he's a human. He's got his human face on, and they're in a hotel room. They don't show anything physical happening, but she mentions actually before she gives birth to Vision, she goes, are they going to be human or are they going to be synthezoid? Which is what Vision is. Vision is a synthezoid. So yeah, I don't... we'll get to that in Comics Corner. And then finally, the aspect ratio switching, and Monica being thrown out of the containment field to reveal that she is there, and at the what I again am assuming is a sword base.
Yeah, I really liked it. I really liked the aspect ratio switch as a subtle way of, I mean, one, just playing with form, but two, as a subtle way to say, okay, we're now shifting to the real world.
Yep.
I thought that was really cool. Yeah.
Agreed. Loved it. Well done. All right, Comics Corner. I have two things for you. One, Tommy and Billy are in fact the names of the twins that Wanda and Vision that Wanda and Vision have in the comics. That, of course, Wanda in the comics also, she conjures. They're not actual children. So they become characters, but in the comics as well, she conjures them out of magic.
Okay. So that actually plays very well into what I was kind of saying, which is, how does a synthezoid biologically? Okay.
The answer is they don't, and that is what causes. And then my second thing of Comics Corner is, again, to keep in mind that in Avengers Disassembled and the House of M, which we feel are going to be borrowing heavy from this, Wanda is the villain of both of those stories. So villain Wanda is definitely, I think, on the table. So two things to keep in mind. So again, Tommy and Billy are the canonical names of her made-up children with Vision, and also that Wanda is the villain of those two stories because she's insane, because the kids aren't real, and she mentally breaks.
So now, do the kids go on to do anything? Are they Avengers? Do they have powers, or
this is so comic booky. They get absorbed back into magic eventually. They cease to exist. They're no longer characters because they never they existed, but only so far as there's some bullshit. I'm not gonna get it. It's a whole rabbit hole that we don't have time for. But yeah, they no longer exist, or they did have powers in the comics, and they were, I don't know if they were, I think they were on the Young Avengers.
Okay.
But yes, they no longer exist. Okay.
And so that, I mean, that plays into the whole them aging really fast too, or, going through the trimesters and all that really fast.
Yep.
Interesting.
All right. One question. We talked about this a little bit, but what do we think the goal of this show is? I think you might have put a box around it pretty well, is that perhaps this is a Disney directive to make content on Disney Plus, and that this show will only be the 8 episodes, and just prove that a Marvel show can be done, and kind of playing on this fun idea that they had to tell a smaller story and to kind of work in other ideas that will pay off in movies. Because in my mind, so far, the goal of the show is not to make a compelling Marvel show a la what Netflix did with Daredevil, Punisher, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, and Iron Fist. That has not been, to me, the goal of this show. The goal of this show is to create Disney Plus content and be the mid-credit stinger of mid-credit stingers as an entire TV show for MCU movies.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm leaning towards right now. I mean, I think if I were to bet right now, I don't see a second season of this show. I don't see them doing anything that establishes it as its own thing. I don't see them having, they haven't done anything that makes it stand alone. It exists solely for the sake of existing within the larger MCU.
Yep.
Now, whether or not that will be true of the other shows, I don't know. But I think right now I'm not seeing anything that they're doing as something that really is setting to stand this apart.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Loki show and the Falcon and Winter Soldier show look like ideas that probably wouldn't play as movies and needed a little bit more time, or they.
Do we know, are they 20-minute or 40-minute shows?
I don't know the
Yeah,
answer to that.
I'm not sure if we know that or not.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, I guess I don't know what the goal of the show is other than to make content for Disney Plus and to again funnel more stories into the MCU. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there is a clear story that will, maybe our face is too close to the picture and we have to pull out to see the full thing. But I suspect that I'm not wrong and that this will not ever play as its own thing.
No. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's really what I'm thinking too. I would be surprised if there's anything that gets a season 2 out of this.
Yeah.
It seems like what they're trying to do is weird things that wouldn't work as movies that they can do to set up other movies.
Yeah.
Characters that people like no one, like, I don't want to say no one, but if they had tried to pitch a WandaVision movie, they probably would have had a harder time getting the green light from Disney. But if they say, okay, let's do a low budget sitcom in the flavor of sitcoms of old, it makes sense. It makes sense on both the thematic and the platform.
Yeah.
And then we'll use that to start to queue up some of the stuff we are doing in movies.
Yeah. It's a much easier sell than to say, hey, I want to make a weird 2-hour Wanda and Vision movie about alternate realities and stuff.
Yeah. And I wonder, I don't know how much they spent on like on a season of WandaVision or a season of Winter Soldier as opposed to a movie, but I imagine it was way less.
Yeah, it had to have been. I would agree.
Yeah.
All right. Any final thoughts that you have about WandaVision episode 3?
I'm still really intrigued, and I think that as hard as I was on episodes 1 and 2, I do think this one changed my course a bit. But I'm still reluctant on it because I just don't. As a general rule, shows that only exist to lead to an ending, I'm skeptical of.
Yep.
And the more and more of this show that goes on, the more and more I think that's what it's going to be.
Yep. It's all going to be building to an ending, and if the ending doesn't work, then the whole thing collapses.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
But if the ending's awesome, then the whole thing gets better. Like, I mean, it's tough. Like, that's the problem with shows like this. Like,
yeah. If it works, it works.
Yeah.
And I have trouble with that because I want the entire thing to work. But
and I mean, it's also, I do think it's also tough because this is clearly not The Mandalorian.
Yes, agreed. And it's the second major Disney Plus show. Yeah,
but I do think it's going to be compared to The Mandalorian a lot, and I think that's fair. Mm-hmm. Especially with it coming, a year after the first season of The Mandalorian, and really being Marvel's first thing. I do think that's a fair comparison. But I don't think this is going to be the Marvel breakout hit that makes people sign up for Disney Plus.
No, I can't imagine that. There's nothing but churn on this because I just don't see anyone tuning in for this. Falcon and Winter Soldier, maybe. I think those two guys are certainly likable enough, and the characters get more play in the comics. I think the Loki show will drive signups for sure. People love Loki.
One interesting thing I saw on Twitter too that people were talking about is that, you know, the Avengers is a very action heavy franchise, and they're leading off with a show that has almost no action whatsoever. So I do think that Falcon and Winter Soldier will be much more. I think it'll feel more like the Marvel movies, just on a smaller scale.
Yeah. Agreed. Well, we'll have to wait and see. We'll have to see if episode 4 of WandaVision lives up to my lofty expectations of making the show good.
It's only 8 episodes, right? So
it's only 8. So this is the midway point.
Interesting. Okay.
This will be the Ahsoka episode.
Okay. Bold prediction. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Magneto shows up.
If Magneto shows up, the show is redeemed completely. If Magneto shows up, if someone enters the show and says, "Hi, I'm fucking like I'm your father," and
what
it's
if,
like,
wait. What if Ian McKellen shows up, but he is not playing Magneto?
They couldn't do that because everybody would be like, "Oh my god, it's Magneto."
But what if? Okay, so they could take this pitch for a second. They could do it where Ian McKellen comes in playing someone in the town who's not Magneto to try to fool Wanda, but then it ends up turning out to be Magneto.
I'm into it.
Okay.
I love it.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
I like that a lot. That's kind of where my Ultron pitch would be, is that Spader comes in as a human, as like someone in the town, like maybe he's the mayor or something, or he's new in town, like he's a traveling, hang on, here you go. He's a traveling salesman who shows up in the 80s, and he is in full 80s regalia, and he sticks around. We could do a little Chris Farley living in a van down by the river where he has to stay in the house, right? And Vision invites him to stay. Vision, for some reason, feels a kinship with him because he's technically his Vision's father. And there's something there, and Wanda slowly starts to piece together the voice, and then we just have Spader slowly dip into going from like manic 80s Chris Farley sleazy salesman to 100% Ultron at the end, and then we get our first bit of action where Wanda will have to do something cool. I don't know. I like it. I really want Spader to be in this show.
I like that. Yeah, that's pretty.
But if I had to pick between the two, I'm picking Magneto all day, because that's really what we want. We want the X-Men and mutants in the MCU, and to bring their biggest badass in. Oh my god, what if the voice was Charles Xavier on the radio? How did we not mention that? God.
And that fits so well with Xavier too.
Yes, because he's reaching out to her mentally in a way that perhaps only she can hear.
Before we end, let's back up.
Okay.
Another speculation point.
Yeah.
What do we think got Wanda to the point she's at now? Because something else must have happened off screen that we haven't seen. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes. I am. Okay, I'm trying to piece this together. Last we saw Wanda, she was at Tony Stark's funeral at the end of Endgame. Not with Vision. However, in the events of Infinity War, suggested that perhaps Black Panther's sister Shuri got enough Vision out to replicate him back, which is what we all thought at the time.
Yeah.
Eventually, they can just remake Vision. Perhaps that failed, and Vision is forever gone. Like, she goes to Tony Stark's funeral, she goes back into Wakanda to see Shuri. Hey, like, how are we making out on Vision? And she's like, oh, I'm really sorry, it got destroyed. He's really gone. Like, there isn't any saving him, and she just loses it.
Okay. Okay.
So that's the only thing I can think of that has a basis in what we've already seen. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts about that? Because I feel like the answer is probably going to come from something that we just literally haven't seen.
Yeah, no, I do think that's true. I think it's something we haven't seen. I just thought of an idea that we haven't touched upon, which is not that Vision is that Shuri is able to replicate Vision, but it's not until after Wanda's snapped, and so they've actually sent real Vision in to try to save Wanda.
Oh my God, that's it. That's definitely going to happen. I'm telling you right now, there's going to be two Visions, and one of them is going to be the real Vision, and that's what's going to bring her. That's what's going to snap her out.
Oh my God, two Vision! Oh no, what have I done?
Yeah, no, I literally love that idea.
Yeah.
Okay, so okay.
So does Vision meet himself?
Yes.
Do we
Yes.
have a conversation of Vision talking to Vision?
Yes, we do. Okay. If we are, I have to do this as I always do. I have to narratively map this onto the story structure analysis. So, we have to break Wanda all the way to the. We have to break Wanda. We have to get Wanda to her all is lost moment before she can come back, which would conceivably be real Vision returning. So perhaps Sword is buying time for that to be the case, because if Wanda is as powerful as she is, perhaps in her grief she caused another disaster, as she did in Civil War, and they're like, oh my God, we need to contain her. The only thing that's going to bring her back is the love of Vision, and we need time. Like, it's going to take Shuri a bunch of time to figure this out. So we're going to put her in a place and use Mysterio tech and try to get her docile and living a life that is there. And she is still like trapped, and realizes that, but can manipulate the world and kind of just falls into it because it's almost like comfort food. Like, she's playing it up. She's living like she's, like you said, she's hamming it up. She's pretending to be in a sitcom. And in episode 4, the show will have to change. Episode 4 would have to be the midpoint, obviously. The show would have to change direction dramatically. Yep. Something big has to happen in this episode to change the show into a different direction. And I think the idea that it could be a mutant, Magneto, Professor X, anyone, Cyclops, fucking Jean Grey for all we know, or someone like Ultron, or someone like Doctor Strange entering, to shift the show into a new direction where villain Wanda becomes real, and the real Vision will have to enter the show to fight fake Vision, who will protect Wanda because he is Wanda, and then ultimately defeat and reclaim Wanda's mental state to save the world, or whatever, big destruction Wanda could create. Essentially they're going to have to, Sword and the real Vision will have to stop Wanda from creating the House of M scenario, in which she changes the entire reality of the world. So right now they've bottled it up. They've bottled that chaos magic up into a little town. Yeah. But if it gets worse, it'll expand to the entire universe and they will all be affected.
So the thing that I like about that the most is that this isn't really a conjecture of Wanda's. It's that they've put Wanda in this.
Yes.
To protect the rest of the universe from Wanda.
It's basically like putting someone into a coma to let their body give time to heal.
I hope we're onto something.
And I think the Agnes character, who will eventually be revealed to be Agatha Harkness, could be the one that actually put her there, because she's a magic character. She could be helping, and she could be in there as a guide to make sure that Wanda stays in for the time being. Or it could be a double agent, which is why she tips the lid to Vision that something's wrong. Because Agatha Harkness is also a villain who could be maybe trying to bring about the House of M scenario. So a lot of different things at play. I think we've set up a show. I think now we've cracked a bunch of different things that could happen. But I'm telling you right now, something you said is absolutely going to happen, and that's Real Vision having a conversation with WandaVision.
Ooh, and that makes the name of the show make a lot more sense too.
You got it. You cracked it.
Ooh.
Look what we did. We broke it down.
We do.
If we're right about this, because our Mando predictions are like seasons in advance. Like, we have Mando predictions that we won't know if we're right until like 2 seasons from now. We could know if we're right on 2 days from now.
2 days from now.
All right. Well, we are gonna keep. I'm now back in on the train of WandaVision, especially the fact that the name makes so much more sense if there's 2 visions. Like, that's incredible that you came up with that, because
especially because WandaVision is the worst name for a show.
It's the worst name. But imagine if that was like a red herring the whole time. Be like, you guys are going to talk about how stupid this is, but when you realize that there will be literally a WandaVision, oh my God, Willie,
we did it.
I mean, you crushed it. I don't even know what to say. All right, that's it. We got to get off. We can't top this. We are going to keep track of literally everything we said, because we should be the next Marvel story executives. But thank you as always for joining me. And this is going to be the inaugural episode where we're doing our closing. And being a Port Royal show, we're going to keep things very piratey, and we are going to end with our call and response, which is, Willie, remember, take what you can
and give nothing back.
Yes. All right. Good night, Willie.
See ya.